It is generally unlikely that the existing 220 supply will be sufficient for both the cooktop and the wall oven. Most electric cooktops require a dedicated 240-volt circuit. Wall ovens typically require a 240-volt circuit as well. To determine the correct wiring requirements for specific appliances, refer to the manufacturer's installation instructions. These instructions indicate the voltage, amperage, and circuit breaker requirements for each appliance. In general, it is recommended to provide separate circuits for each major appliance in a kitchen to ensure that there is adequate power and to prevent overloading. Before discussing specifics, it's important to understand some fundamental electrical concepts. Firstly, voltage is the electrical potential difference that drives current through a circuit. Think of it as the electrical pressure. In the United States, standard residential voltage is typically 120 volts for lighting and small appliances and 240 volts for larger appliances like ovens and cooktops. Secondly, amperage is the measure of electrical current, the flow of electrons. Appliances are rated by the amount of current they require to operate. This is usually indicated in amps. Thirdly, wattage is the measure of electrical power, which is calculated by multiplying voltage by amperage. Wattage indicates the rate at which electrical energy is used. Circuit breakers are safety devices designed to protect electrical circuits from overcurrents, which can lead to overheating and fires. Circuit breakers are rated in amps and will trip, interrupting the circuit if the current exceeds the breaker's rating. Now let's discuss why separate circuits are typically needed for an electric cooktop and a wall oven. Both appliances are high-power devices that draw a significant amount of current. If both appliances were connected to a single circuit, the total current draw could easily exceed the circuit's capacity, causing the circuit breaker to trip. In addition, even if the circuit breaker did not trip, overloading a circuit can cause the wiring to overheat, which can damage the wiring and create a fire hazard. Let's go into more detail on how to determine the correct wiring requirements for a cooktop and wall oven. The most important step is to consult the manufacturer's installation instructions for each appliance. These instructions will provide specific information about the voltage, amperage, and circuit breaker requirements for the appliance. The voltage requirement is typically 240 volts for both cooktops and wall ovens in the United States. The amperage requirement will vary depending on the size and features of the appliance. The installation instructions will also specify the minimum wire size that must be used for the circuit. Wire size is measured in American wire gauge (AWG). The lower the AWG number, the larger the wire. Larger wires are able to carry more current without overheating. The correct wire size for a circuit depends on the amperage of the circuit. For example, a 20 amp circuit typically requires 12 AWG wire, while a 30 amp circuit typically requires 10 AWG wire. Let's consider some examples. Suppose a cooktop requires 40 amps at 240 volts. The installation instructions would specify that the circuit must be protected by a 40 amp circuit breaker and that 8 AWG wire must be used. Now, suppose a wall oven requires 30 amps at 240 volts. The installation instructions would specify that the circuit must be protected by a 30 amp circuit breaker and that 10 AWG wire must be used. Note that the circuit breaker and wire size requirements may vary depending on local electrical codes. It is always best to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure that the wiring is installed in accordance with all applicable codes. Electrical codes are sets of regulations that govern the safe installation of electrical wiring and equipment. In the United States, the National Electrical Code (NEC) is the most widely adopted electrical code. The NEC provides detailed requirements for all aspects of electrical installations, including wiring methods, circuit protection, and grounding. Local jurisdictions may adopt the NEC with or without modifications. It is important to be aware of the electrical codes in a specific area before starting any electrical work. Grounding is an important safety measure that helps to prevent electrical shock. A grounding conductor provides a low resistance path for fault current to flow back to the source, which causes the circuit breaker to trip and energize the circuit. All electrical circuits that serve appliances must be properly grounded. The grounding conductor is typically a bare copper wire that is connected to the metal chassis of the appliance and to the grounding electrode system of the building. The grounding electrode system typically consists of a ground rod or a metal water pipe that is buried in the ground. Ground fault circuit interrupters, GFCIs, are another important safety device that helps to prevent electrical shock. A GFCI is a device that monitors the current flowing in a circuit and detects any imbalance between the hot and neutral conductors. If an imbalance is detected, the GFCI trips, interrupting the circuit. GFCIs are typically required in areas where there is a risk of electric shock, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor locations. If there is any doubt about the electrical requirements for appliances or the wiring in a home, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. Electricians are trained professionals who have the knowledge and experience to safely and correctly install electrical wiring and equipment. An electrician can assess the existing electrical system and determine whether it is adequate to handle the load of a new cooktop and wall oven. An electrician can also install new circuits if necessary. Attempting to install electrical wiring without the proper knowledge and experience can be dangerous. Improper wiring can lead to electrical shock, fire, and other hazards. It is always best to leave electrical work to the professionals. In summary, it is usually necessary to provide separate 240-volt circuits for an electric cooktop and a wall oven. The exact wiring requirements for appliances can be found in the manufacturer's installation instructions. If there is any uncertainty about the electrical requirements or the wiring in a home, consult with a qualified electrician.